Hello, and welcome back to the Performance Marketing Unlocked podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Arthur, PMW's Multimedia editor. Opening today's show, I'm joined by our news reporter, Reem Makari, who's back in studio with me for the first time in a short while to discuss a couple of the big events that have come and gone, particularly MadFest. We talk about Prime Day, which is happening as we are recording, and the state of the advertising industry as we round out H1 and head into H2. Following that catch up with Reem, I'm joined by Mike Follett, the CEO of Lumen Research. Lumen are experts on all things attention. And so, aptly, this episode of the podcast centers around attention's ascendancy as a trusted metric in advertising. And together, Mike and I unpack its true value. It's time to sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Performance Marketing Unlocked podcast. Reem Makari, hello and welcome back to the Performance Marketing Unlocked studio. Looking very summery today.
Yes, well, it's like 26 degrees outside and I was
About
burning
30 degrees for the next 5 days,
Yes.
So settle in, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Well, it's good to be back. I think it's been a while since I've been on the PMW podcast.
I know it's been a hot minute. Congrats on Digital Disruptors. It's
Thank
finished its
you.
first run. That did really, really well.
Yeah.
Yes, it's lovely having you back in studio. It's nice just being back in the studio in general. We've sort of, the last couple eps were out on the ground at Cannes Lion, which is of course very exciting, but I like being in the safety and sanctity of our Twickenham studio.
Yeah, not having to deal with the chaos of Cannes anymore. Can imagine.
Putting the roving mics to bed for another year
Yeah.
and having Nav, our producer, back in studio handling the audio, that just makes my life a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
How have you been though?
Yeah, I've been good. I think we're finally getting to a period where things are calming down a little bit. I wasn't at Cannes with you and Robin, but me and Jyoti were handling all of the news stuff, and that
Doing
was
the
like
real work.
Yeah, but it was like an intense news week, and then obviously the week afterwards was MadFest. And then that was also an intense week. So now things are a bit more calm, and we can actually like start focusing on more of the featurey kind of long form stuff rather than just news.
Sink our teeth into a few things.
Exactly.
I was like, little catch up just for the listeners' sake more than anything, but I was like, actually, it feels like we haven't seen each other in weeks. It's just been so crazy going back and forth. How was your MadFest?
MadFest was good, although I made the mistake of going on the first day, which was during a heat wave. So it was like 32 to 33 degrees, and it's mostly an outdoor event. So by the end of the day, I was near getting heat stroke, which is not good.
A lot of walking up and down East London, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I hit like 16,000 steps in the heat, which is a lot. But it was interesting. I really liked the event, and I went last year for the first time, but I went on the last day of the event, which ends early. So this time I got to go on the opening day, got to see some of the sessions, got to see Sir Martin Sorrell for the second time, and I thought the content was really good.
We saw there was a very popular piece, Sir Martin Sorrell's 5 AI-driven shifts that marketers can't ignore. What was it like sitting in on that session?
So he's an interesting speaker because he'll sit down to be interviewed, but the interviewer only asks like 2 questions, and he will ramble for about 30 minutes because each answer takes about 15 minutes. But he talks so well that you don't want him to stop. You wouldn't want to interrupt him. He was saying really interesting stuff on the state of advertising in different parts of the world. So he said like in the UK and Europe, he's not so optimistic at the moment because there's a lot of economic pressures. There's a lot that they need to be figuring out. But he has a lot of positivity in places like North America, the Middle East, Asia. And he said those are markets that are growing, while we're kind of in a place where we're trying to figure out how to improve and how to especially use AI to improve. And then that's when he went into the 5 AI-driven shifts that we could be expecting, things like personalization, automation, making your work more efficient, making knowledge more accessible as well, which I thought was very interesting. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed that session.
Yeah, although, I mean, everywhere doing really well other than the UK and Europe, which feel like we hear a lot of, but that's the way it goes. And as journalists, we've got to cover it. At least we're not the ones out there doing some of these decisions and struggling with some of these brands' budgets.
But I mean, like, we both worked on the PMW workforce report, and that was kind of mentioned there as well, how we're in this period where we're reshifting our priorities and strategizing and constricting our budgets in some places and then investing in other places. So I think it's just a waiting period.
I agree. I think we've been in a bit of a state of flux, and now it's sort of, what can we do to try and break out of it and try and get some momentum? And I look forward to next week's IPO Bellwether report, which is coming actually. So that might shed a little bit more light on where the industry's at. One thing I did want to touch on with you, MadFest aside, was obviously we're recording this amidst Prime Day or Prime Week, pretty much, which we were saying we're at the end of H1 here, H2 just commencing, and it feels like this is the first sort of big sales event of the year. Prime Day 2025, it's now 4 days instead of 2. Members across 26 countries with Prime have access to the deals. What do you think's driven that? What do you think it means that Prime Day is getting bigger, not smaller, and there's a lot of momentum around a big sales event like it?
I think they're trying to meet demand, because obviously it's a very popular event, similar to Black Friday. Black Friday is very, very popular event, and the way, especially now, where we're in a state of crisis where everyone's trying to save their budgets and do cost cutting. So any place, any brand, any platform that offers discounts is gonna be something that's gonna attract consumers. And I think with Prime Day, that's a great way to get people to sign up, and then also get to offer them those discounts where they could buy whatever they want across these 4 days. The issue with it, though, is I think it kind of removes the attention of other dates like Black Friday, for example. Like, if you have this one big date a year that everyone knows they're going to be getting these huge sales and discounts on, but then you end up introducing several other days throughout the year that do the exact same thing, it doesn't end up having the same kind of value. It almost decreases its value because you have different days that are competing with it. But I think it's probably going to do well. Realistically, people are going to be saving that date in their calendar, and they're going to be spending their money. So I don't think they're going to have an issue with it.
It will be interesting to see, as you say there, these sort of short-term sales days seem to be in a bit more of an abundance than previous years. Prime Day getting bigger. You mentioned Black Friday there as well. TikTok Shop are also doing a lot of very big deals at the moment, sort of in an attempt to get in on the Prime Day action. It almost seems like brands need this more than consumers. Consumers, obviously, particularly here in the UK and Europe, the purse strings are pretty tight, but it's the brands that are really doing these short-term sales days to try and push as much consumer confidence and spending as they can possibly eke out. It seems like perhaps it's been trying to draw blood from a stone, and a lot of these brands and advertisers really just need to generate some spending. Maybe that's the big thing that they're trying to get us on board with, because consumers still aren't very confident in the market.
And it's all about the performance at the end of the day, and why performance is important to so many brands and so many marketers is that it can prove that they're doing their job right, which is what Rory Sutherland said in an interview a couple of years ago. People only like it because it can prove that there's a value to their job. So if you have a couple of days where you've discounted your items very heavily, and people are obviously going to spend their money, they can then show, look, actually, this is popular, we're actually getting consumers, but they're not really thinking about the long term. They're not really thinking about how people are going to stay with them over time, because if people are only buying your products off of a discount, you can't guarantee that they're going to come back to you in the future. They might just end up waiting for another Prime Day or another sales event like that. So it's a bit of a risk.
Yeah, I agree that it's certainly one where we love performance marketing here. Obviously, that's our orientation, but you can't go pure performance all the time. It's just not sustainable. And I think because of the state of the economy, both domestically and sort of the macroeconomic factors affecting us, it just remains that short-termism and that mindset of people have just got to hit their targets quarter over quarter. And I think brand building is being neglected. But it's a product of the pressure that the industry's facing. Sue Azari, who's the industry lead at AppsFlyer, I think she hit the nail on the head, where I spoke to a few experts ahead of Prime Day just for their thoughts going into it. And Sue sees Prime Day as a pressure release valve for an industry facing economic headwinds. And I think that's probably right. That's almost all that needs to be said, where it's looked at a bit of a freebie for a lot of marketers, I imagine. It's like, let's spend a bit of money, get involved in Prime Day. It'll be a nice little short-term win to either round out H1 or set ourselves up for H2.
Yeah.
And I feel like these situations are ones where the C-suite in particular might look at a CMO and the marketing team and be quite critical of them for not getting involved. I think there's some risk with foregoing investment in some of these sales days because they are seen as a bit of a pressure release valve and a bit of a freebie for marketers. So perhaps there's as much risk with not doing something as much as doing something, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And also on the topic of TikTok, Amazon's obviously this year for Prime Day, they're investing a lot more in influencers. So I wrote a news story for the first day of Prime Day, which was about Amazon doubling the commission in some categories for influencers that are promoting Prime Day. And it's part of their I forgot the name of it, but it's like an influencers program that they have. And I looked at the website. I looked at, because obviously I wanted to do some Prime shopping. And
this
I was
is the Amazon Associates program.
Yes, the Associates program. And I was looking on the website and the list of influencers that they have, and none of them were ones that I recognized. And I think where it differs from TikTok Shop is TikTok is a platform for influencers. So the people that are going to be promoting these products, they're people who already have tons of engagement, have a ton of followers, and they're creating this content that already matches their style as well. They're not just doing ads that are scripted by different brands. They're doing their own style, and I think that's why it works, why TikTok Live, why TikTok Shop works. While Amazon is not a place that I would associate as an influencer platform. It's a place to buy products. So I don't really know how...
No, who are some of these Amazon associates? Are there any you can name off?
Well, I'm telling you, I looked at the website. I'm like, I have no idea who these people are.
Okay. Yeah. Well, they're getting twice the commission, and someone's out there making money from it. So good for them. Maybe I'll look into that. Maybe they're looking for associates. Yeah. Well, obviously, Prime Day it's always a big one. But I wanted to just round out this conversation, these last couple of minutes, looking ahead to Q3 and Q4. We got the bellwether coming up, which might give us a bit of insight as to where things stand. But this time last year, Q3 was sort of a bit of a freeze in spending, and everyone assumes, well, that's what we're doing in preparation for a big Q4. Obviously, that's the holiday season, and there's a lot of sales specials associated with that.
Yeah.
Looking ahead now to Q3, do we think that's a trend? And we're just postulating here, but do we think that's a trend that's going to continue? Are we going to see another retraction in spend ahead of a big Q4?
For Q3 and potentially for Q4, I think the focus will continue to be short-term investments, just so that they can hit the targets that they need to hit, that they can have these like results that they can show, these strong results that they can show, and at the same time reduce their budgets, probably do some shifting around, invest in more AI tools, and preparing for next year, where when they have these AI tools incorporated, they can then focus, the human bit can be focusing on how they can get back into creative and brand building. And then maybe next year we'll start to see a bit of balance of both, because personalization is going to be a big focus, I think, for probably end of this year and for next year as well. And that's where the brand building will come in.
Could require a bit of a data overhaul too to get effective personalization. I like it. I think you're right there, where it might be a sort of sit and wait on a lot of the marketing front and keep doing your little short-term, more performance-orientated campaigns, but the investment is coming in the form of building some structures.
Exactly.
Like AI, as you say, that are going to help take on some of those jobs in the years ahead, so that we can focus a little bit more to the creative and the brand building. That certainly seems like the way it might be headed, at the very least here in the UK.
Yeah.
Because doesn't look like the economy is going to do a big dramatic shift anytime soon.
Not anytime soon.
But we can hold out and wait with bated breath, and you never know. I think we'll leave that there. Reem, lovely having you back in studio, joining me once again. Thanks as always. Have you gained enough recognition for your performance marketing efforts over the past year? Feel like you deserve a little bit more? The PMW Awards, our flagship celebration of excellence in performance marketing, are open for entries until midnight on Thursday, the 17th of July. That's less than 48 hours away. These awards honour the very best work across the performance marketing landscape, including tech and innovation, strategy, people and teams, and standout campaigns from a variety of industries. Our 33 categories have been designed so that you can showcase multiple aspects of a single project across different areas. So don't feel limited to just one entry. What's special about these awards is that they provide a platform for industry best practices while also recognising the incredible teams, people and projects that drive innovation in our sector. We also celebrate the winners with a very lovely PMW Awards evening at the end of the year. So for more information or to submit an entry, head to performancemarketingworldawards.com or go to the PMW website events tab. Good luck! Mike Follett, hello and welcome to the Performance Marketing Unlocked podcast studio. How are you doing today?
Not bad. Thank you very much for having me.
We were just talking about the history of that name, Follett.
Yeah,
do you
it's
want
a
to
weird
enlighten
name.
the
It's a
listeners
weird,
as to what
so
it
we were
means?
saying, so an Aussie relative came over from Sydney, wanted to do some family history, worked out, went through the records, and they went, guys, I've got some great news. You came over to Britain with the Normans. It's an ancient name. They were fantastic. We're aristocrats. Well, not quite. In actual fact, what probably happened is that some aristocrat had sex with a mentally impaired girl. You go, where do you get that from? You go, well, in French, folle means mad woman, and Follett means the son of a mad woman. And you go, okay, right. Perhaps sometimes it's better not to know these things.
And the Follett name was born, and here we have Mike Follett today. Son of the mad girl. I imagine your mother's not quite a fan of that family member anymore after all that research. Although, unfortunately, we're not here to talk about the Follett family history, as interesting as that sounds.
Indeed.
Especially the fact that I'm Australian myself, and you mentioned an Australian family member. I'm always curious. We're here to talk about attention, and particularly attention's ascendancy as a trusted metric in advertising. And I want to break down as well exactly what its true value is. Now, you guys at Lumen Research are very much the attention experts. You're no stranger to PMW. I imagine you're no stranger to the listenership. But I wanted to talk about some news that came out last week, and that was Co-op Media Network becoming the first UK retailer to adapt Lumen's eye tracking technology for tracking their in-store attention data. Can you tell me a little bit about that and exactly what that means, attention's convergence with retail media?
Well, Lumen's 12 years old this year, and for ages and ages we've been talking and researching mainly about digital media and sort of what you might call above-the-line advertising. So we collect lots of data through eye-tracking technology about how people engage with Facebook ads or YouTube ads or TV or cinema or whatever. It came as quite a mindset shift to realise that in-store media are visual ads in a sense as well. We've been working with Co-op in lots of different ways for ages, but such is the way of the world that I bumped into a guy in a corridor when I was up in Manchester and told them what we were doing. And he said, well, of course, I run the Co-op Media Network and I sell a lot of retail media. Often we think of that on the retail side, but of course it's media as well. And so we sort of hatched a plan to treat in-store media as if it was media.
This sounds like the work of Co-op's Dean Harris, am I right?
It is indeed. It's Dean Harris.
Friend of the podcast, former guest as well.
And a great man there, because I think it sometimes takes a sort of a real creative leap to see that, we thought everything fitted into one box, but in actual fact, it could easily fit into another mental category as well. And so we decided to conduct an eye tracking study to look at how people engage with FSDUs and wobblers and all the sort of strange words that you use in retail media, in the actual supermarket itself. and to try and collect visual attention data in exactly the same way as we've collected all our visual attention data for Facebook and for YouTube and for newspapers and TV
Cinema.
and stuff, and all of those sorts of things. And the real innovation is not so much the technology we use, but the comparison, the data that we're making. So instead of putting retail media into the ghetto of trade deals and this sort of slightly closed off world of suppliers talking to brands and supermarkets just talking to Unilever and things like that, which is a wonderful business to be in, but it's actually quite a small business in comparison to the much larger world of media in general. So what we did is we got hundreds of people to wear eye tracking glasses. We asked them to go into various Co-op stores, and we just tracked what it is that they noticed, what they looked at, what they ignored, what they engaged with there. And at the end of their trip, we'd ask them, would you remember seeing this or that and the other, or what do you think about brand A or brand B? So we went back to the office, collated all the data, understood what from the videos and the data that we captured via the glasses, what media was viewable. Whether a big poster outside the store was viewable for respondent A and respondent B came in through a different way and so couldn't see it. There. So that's the first thing. And then secondly, if it was viewable, did anyone look at it? Which is
important point, of course.
And then thirdly, if it was viewable and they looked at it, how long did they look at it for? And this is exactly the sort of approach we take to understanding YouTube. In digital media, we're very aware of viewability and viewable time. And then what Lumen does is we collect visual attention data to work out how does viewability relate to actual attention for YouTube or for Facebook or TikTok or whatever. And now we can do exactly the same thing for supermarket media. It's a really exciting project, and we're really proud of the work we've done. But like I say, we've done lots of in-store projects before. This isn't that isn't the first rodeo there. The real innovation is the conceptual innovation of treating retail media as media rather than retail.
So that's the big change for retail media, I suppose. Do you see Co-op being sort of the first domino to fall in that respect?
Absolutely. They're real thought leaders in this. And there are lots of fast followers. So I think you should expect lots more retailers to come out with these sorts of messages there. But Co-op is certainly the instigators of this sort of reconceptualization. But I think there's actually two really innovative things about what Co-op have done there and what Dean has wrought with his clever thinking. Number one is this idea of why don't we make all of this stuff comparable so that media planners, when they're thinking about where should I put my message or how much tension am I generating across these different media, can include and can think of retail media as an option on the plan. So that's one thing. But the second really big innovation, I think, is making sure that data is available within the agency planning tools. Because ultimately, point of sale media had a point of sale problem. Where does anyone buy media? You go to a media agency, they do the buying, but how do they actually do the buying? It's via their planning tools. And if you're not in the planning tool, then you're probably not on plan. And so the second really, really great innovation that we've got here is making sure that all the big agencies are given access to this data. We did this research. We found out that, point of sale materials get X amount of attention. Point of sale materials in small format stores, which is what Co-op has lots of, get even more attention. And you can compare that to all these media. That's great. But the danger with that is it's just going to be quite an interesting thing for a podcast, or some presentation. You get like the Britney Spears microphone on, you prance around a screen, you point to the slides, and then everyone goes away and goes, "That's really interesting."
But how can we make it a bit more consequential?
Well, exactly. What do I do now?
World?
What do I know? I've got a PowerPoint deck.
Yeah.
And you realise that to actually affect change, you have to put the insight at the point of purchase, at the point of sale. And you have to make it easy for 26-year-old planners to actually just press the button or check the box.
And that data's been made available, as you say, to the big agencies. I'm thinking sort of the whole code.
Exactly. So the first cab off the rank is Dentsu and Cara. They've been really forward-looking when it comes to attention. They've been running a big attention project for the last 6 years called the Attention Economy Project, and Lumen and others have sort of contributed that in Britain and in across Europe, America. We've just been doing some amazing stuff in Japan and India. So that's an enormous, great project that they've been pushing for many years now. But it isn't just Dentsu. I know we're integrating this data into Havas's meaningful media planning tool, Omnicom's Omni system, WPP's Choreograph, which is a sort of a very exciting AI-enabled media planning tool. The AI can only work if you've got some data in the tool.
Of course.
So all of the big agencies are being given access to this and training about it. That's the second major innovation here, about not just make the data comparable, but make it easy.
Now, if we expand that out a bit, you said Lumen's been around 12 years, so that's over a decade in the attention game. We're obviously at a point here with today where you're having relationships with big grocers, with some of the big major agencies, as you've just named there. Along that 12-year journey, how have things sort of changed? Because it feels like, certainly for me as a journalist, attention and the attention economy, which is a word I've heard more and more over the last 12 months, has really got a bit of momentum behind it. I'd say in the last 12 to 18 months, certainly from a coverage perspective on my end. What do you think's been driving that, and how has this thing changed over the more than decade you've been in the game?
Yeah, it's taken a dozen years to be an overnight success.
Well, has it? You often hear that's the case, but is it?
Absolutely. And I know, and things are motoring. They really are. We've just moved into our new offices. Our team expands all the time. I have a challenge as a CEO that I don't automatically know people's names.
Good problems to have, though. Good problems to have.
Introducing myself to who are you? All right. So I know it's very exciting, and it is actually, it's all happening now. I think there has been a sort of a journey, and it's growing in accelerating, because we spent the first 4 years or so, if you chunk it up into sort of 3-4 year chunks, the first 4 years we spent mostly setting up a problem. We go around and we were the sort of doomsday people who would go into agencies and clients and go, no one's looking at your ads. Or far fewer people are looking at ads than you think. All on that viewability data.
Were people very responsive to that? I imagine that's not something they love to hear.
No, everyone got like, you go through the sort of 5 stages of grief, don't you? Initially sort of denial, and then bargaining and whatever the other ones are. I can remember going in to see the Sun newspaper and talking to a bunch of salespeople there, saying, you do realise that loads of people aren't looking at the ads. I almost got thrown out of the... Don't you dare tell anyone that not everyone looks at every single ad.
How dare you enlighten us to a big problem.
Exactly. And so I can remember that line from Kant, or the motto of the Enlightenment, which is aude sapere, dare to know. And you go, you have to be a brave person to take your medicine.
It's the opposite of ignorance is bliss, really.
Well, exactly, and so the first 3 or 4 years, we essentially had bad news for people. And you'd go and measure lots of different media, and then at least there would be some winners and losers. I mean, everything's broken in that sense, but some things are less broken than others, and so that was, you'd say, well, relatively speaking, this is better than the other, and things, but still mainly bad news, and also a slight sense of like, well, what do I do with this now that I know that my beautiful ad campaign isn't looked at by everyone all the time? Well, what do I do about it?
Can you offer us a solution?
Well,
I
exactly.
imagine is what people were asking.
And so once you got over the sort of shock of the bad news, people would say, well, can you offer us a solution, like you said? And initially I thought, well, aren't you the media agent? I'll tell you, give you... give you the news, but and we realised that very quickly what clients wanted us to do is to come up with solutions, not just say me how I could do it myself, but help me do it. And I think that came as quite a big shock for us, that we thought that we were just truth tellers, but in actual fact we had to be solutions providers. And so we spent a long time building this data into planning tools, creating our own viewability products so that people could measure stuff, creating our own custom algorithms for digital media so that you could, and if you know that ads on website A always get more attention than ads on website B, we could let people buy both and then tell them, you wasted your money on website B, but it's a bit late then. You already spent the money.
Money's gone.
The money's gone, and then you just got an angry email from the client saying, well, whose fault is that? And so what we would end up, what we've gone more towards is providing algorithms to help people buy the good stuff and stop wasting money on the bad stuff. And again, that sort of attitude of being helpful, rather than just telling it like it is, you have to help people do it like it is.
You come in and you say, "Here's your problem, but good news, we have a way to help."
And then, lastly, in the last few years, things have moved on again, which is we used to be very sort of assumptive in saying that this attention stuff, is very important. Yeah, who doesn't want their ads to be seen? And who wouldn't want those ads to be seen for longer? And who wouldn't want just to pay for the stuff that gets looked at and stop paying the stuff for the stuff that gets ignored? And yeah, I mean, there's an intuitive sort of sense that that's right. But lots of as we enter a sort of outcomes environment, people would say, well, I can actually work out what happened after that ad. If there was a click, if there was a conversion, the brand lift on things or the sales lift. Working with people like Amazon, they have this enormous ability to link the number of impressions that you were served to the outcomes. And again, a little bit like the first sort of pivot that we had, we thought, well, aren't you, Mr. Client, going to want to mark your own homework? You don't want us to link attention to outcomes for you, do you? I mean, that's surely your role. And again, you realise that clients are
quite happy to let you do the work for them.
Well, exactly, because that's part of the solution. That's part of it. And I think the last 12 years has been us taking on more and more responsibility and being more and more grown up about it. Instead of just telling people the problem, tell people the problem and provide a solution, and then make sure that solution works. And so we have grown in sort of responsibility in that sense. And I think that's why this year, and the last couple of years, people are starting to take the attention idea a bit more seriously, because we have grown up enough to have proper grown-up conversations with people.
I guess you sort of benefit from the new technology, the fact that we're undertaking this sort of data revolution and everything that comes with the data and this new technology. Suddenly you've got new metrics that can deliver on, as you say, the sort of performance nature of these things.
Especially the fact that brand outcomes can be thought of through a performance lens.
It's moved up the funnel.
Exactly. I think what's really, really interesting is that we were always very good at showing that ads that are likely to get high levels of attention in any media are likely to generate clicks. The problem with clicks is that they're irrelevant. Conversions are a man-made artifact. Different algorithms suggest what those are in different ways, often to the benefit of Google, in my experience. Clicks very rarely relate to proper outcomes in the real world. So there was a slight worry for us that we could optimize attention to these digital performance outcomes, but it wouldn't really matter. But what's happened in the last 3 or 4 years, I think, is that other digital performance metrics have sort of come to the fore. Brand lift studies are a godsend to all advertisers. The short-term and the long-term effects, very important. Secondly, companies like Tesco, companies like Amazon, and companies like Co-op, I suppose, as well, can link a digital impression metrics to outcomes in the real world. And again, that's tremendously important because it allows us to have a much richer understanding of how marketing's working.
I think this is something that stood out to me from the last time you and I had a conversation, and it really highlights what I want to get into next, which is the value of attention, because you talk about people going into co-op stores with the glasses on, and how long are they looking at ads for, and what does it actually mean? What then happens afterwards? And to quote you, you found that there was almost a perfect correlation between attention and profit. So you told me that the relationship between incremental profit and incremental attention is 0.979, meaning that 97.9% of variation in profit is explained by variation in attention. This indicates that things like out-of-home, CTV, and linear TV are probably generating much more attention and profit than things like social media, which is perhaps a bit click heavy. We'll get into those metrics there. But I think that highlights the point in terms of people might be asking, what's the value of all this attention? Well, attention itself isn't necessarily the revenue driver, but when you hold attention, profit tends to come with it. And then I guess you get into this discussion of which channels is attention most effective.
Yeah. I mean, that research was done separately in partnership with WPP and Ubiquity. And what we did is we had a look at 144 econometric studies, I think it was, 10 categories, 16 brands from around the world. And Ubiquity had done a lot of work to work out if you had 1,000 impressions in a particular media, how much more profit would you get from those 1,000 impressions? And they found that some media generated much more profit than another. And we layered on the attention data for each of those media, and we found that it matched our data perfectly. The more attention you get, the more profit you make. And that's a statistical relationship. It's a very close one. It's like you say, 97% of the variance is explained by attention. So that's amazeballs. But that's a sort of a analytical approach. We've had a lot of looks at lots of econometric models. That's just one relationship between media and profit. Add on our generalized attention data. That it's nice to know that there's this general relationship. But I think what's really exciting is understanding the specific relationship for a specific brand. And then I don't think you need to use the Ubiquity style econometric models. Then I think you can get back into the performance marketing mentality of doing A/B tests and linking to these more campaign specific outcomes.
Can you think of an example where you've seen that work for a brand?
Oh yeah, I mean we do. Almost every Lumen client does this now. Last year, one famous case is last year we were working with Heineken in Brazil, and we did a series of A/B tests in partnership with Teeds, the digital format owner, and we found that when we were buying high attention placements, there was a almost precise correlation between the number of people who remembered the ads and the amount of time that they spent looking at them for. And Teeds were able to help Heineken stop buying bad media per se and start buying good stuff. And then even within the good stuff, optimize the placements to make sure that they were giving the ads the best possible chance of being noticed and noticed for longer. And that linked. That's just one example of what we do day in, day out, which is to try and understand what's the relationship between the attention we're measuring and the outcomes you want. So what's interesting about Heineken in Brazil is that their objective was just to get known and just fame. And that's a great objective.
Yeah.
That's good,
Just general sort of awareness.
Yeah, and that's what advertising is all about. It's about making mental availability.
Certainly the essence of it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's really good. Other brands are about getting people to do test drives for cars. And that's what success is like. And finally, other brands might want you to actually book a holiday or actually spend some money. And so what's really important is to understand how much attention does brand A need to get the job done versus brand B. And it's only through a sort of performance marketing mindset of like testing and learning and treating every campaign as an experiment that you can learn what's right for your brand. Because it's not as simple as just saying buy more attention. I mean, that's a rule of thumb. That's not bad, but usually, cinema ads cost more than Facebook ads. Yes, you get more attention, but they cost a lot more, and you don't get the reach in the same way. So you have to. It's a trade-off here, and while there's a trade-off for every media, in different ways, that trade-off will be different for different brands. Some brands will see that it's actually worthwhile for them, for their objective, to go into cinema and have a massive, great 60-second ad. Other brands with other objectives might choose a different approach, and that's cool. That's the point.
Attention's obviously got its finger in a lot of pies now, retail media most recently, but of course there's a digital out-of-home aspect to retail media these days as well, and there's a lot of emerging channels, I think CTV, and you've got some mainstays like cinema and social media now. Is there a channel that you find particularly interesting and particularly effective for brands that you think might be getting underutilized a little bit? Any trends that you've identified working in the attention space where you think, wow, that this channel always delivers? I don't know why people aren't giving it more time.
I think TV in general, you have to remember, there's most of us at the end of the day, we have dinner, we sit down in front of a big screen and we are entertained, and that entertainment is interrupted with quite big 30-second TV ads.
But that's changed a lot, whether it's sort of that linear TV or if it's the streaming aspect of it. It's a bit fragmented.
Lots, and that fragmentation is a problem for media buyers, I suppose, but computers can sort that one out. I think TV, linear or CTV, is a great media, and I think probably underpriced. That's my feeling for what you're getting out of it in reality. But and CTV with the targeting aspects, the addressability things, I think is even better. But I don't know if we're representing the value of that media as in the long term and the short term as best as we can as an industry. But that's a pretty obvious one for me. The unsung hero of the advertising world is gaming, especially if you want to try and reach sort of hard to reach audiences, Gen Z, millennial. I don't know what are these bloody categories mean.
Gen Z, Gen Alpha,
young people.
Yes,
there who often opt out of advertising, don't watch a lot of TV, use ad blockers and stuff like that. In-game advertising, like intrinsic in-game advertising, stuff that's sort of hoardings around the football pitch or
across mediums like mobile, console, iPad, the whole thing,
the whole lot, and then also those sort of interstitial ads where you die in the game, and so to get a free life or to get regenerated, people are quite happy to voluntarily engage with a brand because that brand is sort of buying them an extra life or now it's interesting. That's a very high attention space, but it's also one that marketers don't know much about because often they're not gamers themselves. I'm not much of a gamer myself, but it's just an interesting thing where you are not your audience. And because, one of the great things about eye tracking is that you literally see through other people's eyes. I have this amazing sort of reminder every day that other people look at the world in a different way than I do, and within that, gaming is something that may not be my world, but it's a very big industry, and perhaps marketers are leaving money on the table there.
Wow, I like it, Mike. Now, unfortunately, we could go on about this all day, but we do need to move on to the Resell Me a Pen challenge before we run out of time. To refresh the listeners how this works and perhaps remind yourself, you've got 60 seconds to resell me an outdated product or service. I'll give you a warning when there's 30 seconds left and when there's 10 seconds left. But before we get into that, do you want to reveal to myself and the listeners what it is you're going to attempt to resell? I know you were umming and ahhing about this.
Well, this podcast is recorded in Twickenham, which is bloody miles outside of London. So I looked at you sent me a list of all the previous stuff, and it goes on for like pages and pages.
We've been around a long time.
Yeah, exactly. So choosing something you haven't chosen before. So I thought, what sort of technology? Well, measurement technologies are what I'm into. And so the thing I'm going to try and sell to you is the imperial measurement system, miles and inches and feet and yards.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. I love it because I hate it. I'm Australian. This is foreign, but bring it on. 60 seconds, Mike. Let's go. Starting now.
Okay. So no one in their right mind would come up with miles and yards and feet and inches. And it's a stupid, stupid system. Who on earth thought that 1,760 yards should equal a mile? This is a stupid system. And most right-thinking countries in the world have got rid of this stupid system and used the metric system. But I think it is a useful thing in two ways. One is it reminds you that having two systems reminds you that all of these systems are man-made, that you can pick and choose between them, and that the units we use are human artifacts. And the second reason is that the imperial system is based on the human body. That feet in the system are feet on people. And we realise that man is the measure of all things. And that teaches us something very profound.
Amazing. Right on. Well, that's 60 seconds on the dot. So you've hit that. And I know that wouldn't have been prepared. So well done, Mike. First, I'll commend you for getting it in bang on time. And you know what? It's an unorthodox sales pitch, but I didn't mind it one bit. And it appealed to me mostly because what do people love? The idea of choice is a very modern sort of idea of, well, I just let me choose what I want to do. Don't tell me what I need to do. Don't tell me what I should do. Give me the abundance of options and I'll do it my way. It's like people's engagement with TV, I suppose.
Yeah.
And you've sort of said here, well, we've got the metric system. Why not just keep it? You can choose it if you want to.
Exactly.
You like it.
And it reminds you that none of these things are God-given.
No.
We make them all.
Yeah.
I mean, an interesting thing just to conclude on Lumen. You started on the name Follett, but you might conclude on, where does the name Lumen come from? Well, of course, it's a unit of light. It's a scientific unit of the unit of light. But what's really interesting about the lumen is that all the other measures are related to the universe in some way. So speed is calculated in relative to atomic vibrations and color and the distances and whatever it is. But there's one scientific unit that relates to humans, and that's the lumen, which is how many candles you can see from a particular distance. It all relates to the human eye. And I think what we have to remember is that it's about humanity. It's not about the ones and zeros of digital marketing. It's about the people looking at those ones and zeros. And if we as marketers can remember the humanity of our audiences and our own humanity, I think we'll become better at our jobs.
I can't imagine a better sentiment to end on there, Mike. I was about to get into the whole debate of my favourite unit of measurement's a parsec because I'm a Star Wars fan. But I think that's a lovely way to round out the show. It was an absolute pleasure having you, Mike. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks very much.
And that concludes this episode of the Performance Marketing Unlocked podcast. A big thank you to my guests this week, Reem Makari, PMW's news reporter, and Mike Follett, the CEO of Lumen Research. I hope you found that discussion about all things attention as enlightening, if you'll let me, as I did. As always, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you, the loyal listener, for tuning in each and every fortnight as you do. We'll be back, as always, in 2 weeks' time with another episode of the Performance Marketing Unlocked podcast. In the meantime, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to the show on your podcast platform of choice and go give us some love on social media. We've got full episodes clips, all that good stuff over on our YouTube channel, our TikTok, our LinkedIn, and of course the website. And a final call out for those PMW Awards entries. You've got less than 48 hours to get them in, so you don't want to miss out. Thanks very much for tuning in. I'll leave you there. As always, have an amazing week, and bye for now.